Welcome to another episode of the Bloody Mission podcast. In today's episode, we are sitting down with Callan and Dan, and we are reflecting on their experiences on the Tassie Trail. This will be a 3-part series featuring Callan and Dan in the first part, Cords and Nappers in the second part, and Steely and Jesse in the third part. And remember, any sort of interaction with the podcast helps us grow, so feel free to share it with people who might be interested, like or comment, and all that stuff. We appreciate your support. Buckle in, get yourself a drink. This one's a bloody ripper.
Oh, we're doing it.
Australia is the biggest island on Earth or the smallest continent or continental landmass. Very insightful. What I like about this is I learn. I drink and I learn. What do you got?
At the 1966 Commonwealth Games, every single Aussie diver won a medal.
Was that because there's one?
I don't know. I'm going to have to... 1966 Com Games. All right, I'll go over.
What about the one we had before? VB first promoted on TV in 1968, was it? It was 1968.
Yeah.
It must have been, I was saying to Dan, it must have been the moon landing and then the VB ad. I mean, I know the moon
Maybe in
was
the
a little
same
bit
week.
before that, but yeah, same week.
Well, actually, here it is here. Is it? Yeah, 1968.
Yes. Righto.
Well, this one was good too. Powell Strzelecki Desert, Strzelecki
the track.
explored 11,000 kilometres on Australia by foot.
How many VBs you reckon you knock off on that? I've got a bone to pick just before we start, Mitch, if that's all right. We're drinking VB because we can't access Boag's Red. Boag's
on the mainland.
Boag's Red, for those looking down the camera, is only available in Tasmania. Great drop. We enjoyed it very much in Tasmania. It was a staple part of our 24-hour schedule for that week.
Repeated for multiple days.
And sadly, as I looked up Uncle Dan's to buy 3X, they call it Ruby down there. No dice.
No.
They even say, yes, you can put it in your cart, but no, we don't have it. So, Bogues, I'm talking to you. Please bring the rubies to the mainland, please, for two bald blokes with beards.
Or at least to our garage.
Yeah. Either way, we'll take it. In the meantime...
We're happy to do one bulk purchase
pallet
a year.
Yeah. Anyway, look, we're here to talk about the Tassie Trail.
What do you want me looking?
Just a cow.
Oh.
Just look at me, baby.
If you
Hungry eyes.
if you talk to me, then look at me. But other than that, just look at cow.
Talk to the hand.
Yep. So it's about 2 weeks post Tassie. Mm-hmm. And Mitch so rightly pointed out that it's probably a good time to reflect on, Tassie and the trail and the experience and the after party and everything that we experienced. And I've really struggled coming back, if I'm honest with you, where people go, how was the trip? And people have been awesome. People have been following along and whatever. How was the trip? And it's so hard to encapsulate for me in 10 seconds what we experienced in 86 hours, let alone the after party and whatever. And I don't know if you've experienced that at all, but it's been a very unique experience from having such a high, and then coming back to, I'll say, real life, and then trying to share the experience. I don't know if you've had the same thing.
Yeah, and it's similar in a way to when you go away. We spend a lot of time camping, so you spend a lot of time outside, a lot of time in the weather. I think you compound that for weeks like we had in Tassie. When you're outside the entire time, it's cold, you're in the elements, you're not sleeping, you're running long distances, you get quite used to it, and when you switch back into normal day-to-day, it's difficult, particularly when the entire trip was focused on achieving big goals in the fundraising element, in putting on an after party at the end when we got to Hobart, and in individual achievements that we were all looking at working through along the way. There's a lot going on, and you get to the end of that and it just stops. And it is difficult to sum up the trip or how it went briefly, because you want to be able to describe what it was actually like, but that's pretty hard.
Well, and no one outside of the people on the trip will understand. People will understand a version of what we're talking about, but I think that's the best bit. Like one of the things I took out of it was the camaraderie. Like, everyone was just leaning into each other. From the day we got there, everyone was trying to, how can I help, and all that sort of stuff. And it was a wild week, but really, I want to peel it back, because it's all good to talk about Tassie, but it's like, well, what brought up to Tassie, right? What come to Tassie before we started on this wild adventure?
It took a long time.
It wasn't something we picked out of the air and said, oh, let's do that next week, and so when the idea first spawned, like from your perspective, were you like, oh fuck, like, oh god, like, what are we doing, But I know there was interest, right? Because you're that sort of dude.
Not at that point. Because at that point, I wasn't running.
Yeah.
I was just at that point the original idea, and I think even briefly, the original idea was that you potentially weren't going to run either. Originally, there was the discussion around we'd take a group of people. We'd fundraise a big goal, and we'd support them in doing that. So. No, I was all for it. It was ripper.
It'd be great for someone else to do this.
Things changed over the couple of years of our planning, to the point where we indeed would be running as well, which was my only main reservation around how we were going to pull everything together as well as get out and run a bit. But this was, it was not too long after the blood run. Yeah. It was in fact very shortly after that idea popped out. So we're talking at least 2.5 years.
I reckon.
If I was to interject, and I'm off camera here, but was it the first time you told me about it in that cafe in Korea?
No. So I reckon I messaged it.
Yeah.
When I had COVID,
which was the week after.
Was the week after the blood run.
Yep.
Okay.
I was stuck in a gimp room at my old house, because that's when you had to isolate and all that rubbish. And I was bored, clearly.
And I was at the back of the trailer in the driveway with all the leftover gear
from
the blood run.
Cleaning my car meticulously. Better than you. Dan loves a chamois.
We had to pass the time.
Can chamois.
I had COVID as well.
Anyway,
it was a good time.
It was a hot combo. Why weren't you isolating?
I was in the driveway. in the driveway.
Yeah. So I think the idea started, and to be honest, if I'm truly honest, when I sent it to you, I thought maybe I'll do this myself. Like I'll have a crack at this myself. And as we started to unpack, Mitch made the movie about the 250, and the thing I really learnt, I did it, and then when I watched the movie back, because obviously cognitively I wasn't there, is that the community was everything. And so as we started to unpack what this could look like, it could be a lot of fun with a bunch of people, right? And you talk about us not being prepared to run, but the idea of like 5 people not knowing when they could run or when they're meant to run, and then like just throwing us all in a van and let's see how we go, really did spur it on, right?
Yeah.
And we got to a point where it's like, actually, I think we're going to do this. And I think from like my side, I was talking to brands about, and they're going, well, what's next? And it's like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. And what I loved most about that is it's like, it's not about a single person, it's about a group of people.
Yeah.
And that becomes really interesting. And then you start to think about, well, who were the people that we'd put in this? And, and that doesn't just, you don't just go, oh, boom, 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 boom.
No.
Like, we know so many people that would love to do this, but, it was cool to sort of start to unfold that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that took some time.
Well, it wasn't something that just popped out of the air, but, I think for us, it was who supported us during the blood run. Because that wasn't, the blood run was something that we just sort of popped out of thin air that we went and did. And people joined along the way. We're like, how can we help and whatever and be a part of it? And so, I know certainly for Mitch and I know that you've had the same sentiment, was like, well, the people that really lent into the project, let's give them the opportunity to come do something as well.
Yeah.
And that was super cool. I really liked that we could include those people.
Yeah.
And obviously being Matt Natman, the doctor that massaged my leg at 2 a.m. in the morning through a car window.
And in Tassie.
Yeah. Steely, who's turned out to be a great mate through my cousin. Jesse, who's the other guy that came, who those guys are mates. And then, we got Cords, Mitch, yourself, myself, and, long-time mates, new mates, but all combined for the one thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you just couldn't replicate, that group of people. Yes, there was massive connections through the blood run, but fast forward to Tassie and you look at and we've talked about this a lot during the week in the lead up and also on reflection. We talked about it in relation to the blood run, and we continue to talk about it now, 3 years on. Spending that type of time together doing those types of things causes certain things to happen to relationships, sometimes for good, usually, hopefully.
Yeah.
Sometimes the potential is that it can put so much pressure on relationships that it causes
Would you
other
say
challenges.
something like putting 7 blokes in a camp event that sleep 6? Would it be something like that? Dan, you think?
I think that was okay. We weren't actually getting. I don't think that caused the most pressure out of the week in Tassie. But things like that, yes, most definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this a lot. You're playing with, we knew coming into a week like this that we wouldn't be sleeping much. We wouldn't be eating normally. We would probably be.
Imagine chicken noodles is all right.
We were drinking normally. Yeah, but the Oriental. No go.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Get to
but
that.
Steely had a rating system for the noodles.
Yes, we will get to that. And
Mitch might have to pull up the clip of that.
He definitely is the SME, given that he had the most opportunity to really run through the noodle spectrum throughout his 100Ks.
Yeah.
But it puts a lot of pressure on. And the things that you take away when you get to spend, it gets to the point where it really, these types of things, they strip away all of the facades that we naturally build up and we've got in place on the day-to-day, even with our closest mates and our families. It's going through things like this that strip away all that and really test the mettle of where your relationships are at and how you can deal with certain things when it gets hard. And that's largely we've talked about it a lot. You can't just go and get a blood cancer, take it off the shelf and give it a try.
Yeah. It's a great analogy. I love that. You can't just sample it.
You can't try it.
Just test it. No.
Not that you'd want to, but also you can't. How do you find an environment where you can deliberately strip away a lot of the comforts? Running is hard, but it's fun for us as well. We love it. We like the adventure stuff. It's some of the other things that add to the discomfort and strip away a lot of the... we're not saying that we're going to go out and do it out of a backpack with nothing to keep us warm or dry or fed or watered, but intentionally we were going to make it hard. And we did, and it was difficult, but that does certain things, and I think we genuinely saw that tests people in ways that you're maybe not quite prepared for.
So, boys, when was the first moment in the run that you realised that the crewing part was actually as difficult as the running part?
Actually, I'm gonna step back a bit.
Checkpoint 1.
Yeah. I jagged leg 1, right? And to be honest, it was pretty good. Yeah, I got a good night's sleep the night before. Bang, into it. And I finished that and finished like I would finish any ultra.
Yeah.
I'm sucking beers.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's bloody send it. But then the realization come in is that, hang on, I got to
Do it again.
Well, no. Well, do it again.
Yeah.
But I've got to be present for
yeah.
my mate. Like, you were the third leg, so I was in the second leg with Jesse, and things are great, and I'm flying. I'm having a great time. And then I'm like, hey, shit, I've actually got to be present for the next leg. I've got to be up and at it. And so the realization for me come real quick in the fact that, like, I'm done my first leg. This is great. And then bang. And so it was a different experience from the fact of normally you go and do that, then you kick back, food, drinks, sleep, hang out with your mates, whatever. Not this time.
No.
Not this time.
And from what I saw, the people that were like, you just finished and you're like, oh, I can go and rest now. Like, you didn't want to.
No.
Because you're like, oh, well,
The boys are going, and
these guys up and this. And so at some point I could see, and I felt it in myself, each person start to be like, oh, cool, this person's up, but I got to go and get some sleep. Like, I got to take care of myself, because it was hard.
Yeah. And like, I remember, I actually can't remember. Maybe I napped for a few hours during Jesse's thing as you took off. Sorry, we did the changeover between Jesse and you, and you took off into the night. And I think I might have slept a couple of hours in bed.
Yeah.
And then I jumped in the car and then come out after you. And then I can honestly say from that point, I slept mostly in the car.
Yeah, and I was pretty much the same, because that was the first overnighter. So we'd been, and I talked about it in the context of trying to, when people, to your point and your first question, people saying, how'd it go? I think back to day one, we didn't have much sleep. We'd flown into Hobart on the Saturday. We'd done our stuff. We'd stayed overnight.
Yeah, it was set up.
The Sunday was a big day.
Yeah.
We were doing some filming stuff. We were getting stuff sorted, putting the stuff on the cars. Getting food, figuring out what we need to do and where we need to be, and then we drove from the bottom to the top
Via the Bogues Brewery.
And then, had a change in location from where we were going to camp, and we're not, it's not like we're sitting around,
waiting to run.
Crushing cans at midday with a fire on. Like, we were setting up. We were setting up at 8, 9 o'clock at night, trying to figure out how we're going to sleep. 7 people in a van that sleeps 6, which was easy because Steely went to the Pullman. So it was like that actually, or the Novotel.
His freaking ice bath took his spot.
Correct. But we were I think we were all up at around 3:30, 3:45 to get you going for the next morning. So 3:30, 4:45, your leg, crewing, Jesse's leg, crewing, moving the camper to the next spot, setting up, cooking dinner, getting a fire going, all those types of things. And then, you're up, you've got to go run 50 Ks, and it's now...
But you didn't know that, right?
No.
So it was like,
and it's
many money.
And now it's 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
You know you're not going to get any sleep. So you run through the night. And I distinctly remember finishing at 3:30 in the morning and getting changed into a pair of trackies and a fresh jacket, putting some dry socks on and putting my stuff in a pile in the back of the truck and jumping in the passenger seat in the front. And the dawning and the realisation was, I'm going to be here all day. And we were, because we were crewing for nappers. And so we were up the top of the hill, we were checkpoint to checkpoint to checkpoint.
Into Steely.
Dealing with all the stuff where you've just run 50 Ks. I don't think any of us would find 50K runs easy. you feel a bit crook after it. You might be tired, you're achy, you're sore, whatnot. You're still preparing to go and do the same thing again, but you're in a car for the whole day. You're not sitting down having a bath. We didn't get showers sometimes until 12 or 18 or 24 hours after we'd run 50 Ks through the night.
I agree with you. I don't think I showered. When I finished the 50, I don't think I showered for like 8 hours or 9 hours after that.
I didn't smell when I finished the 50 anyway,
Neither
so it
did
was
I.
fine.
I smelled like some sort of rose. Maybe a ruby. I smelled like a ruby rose.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me. It could have been sweating that out. But yeah, you constantly, and so that by the time we got real sleep, to your point, being in the car, I think I'd been awake at one point, I think I'd been awake for 38, 40 hours.
Yeah.
And run 50 Ks in the middle of that takes its toll really quickly.
And I think we're at a point now where 50 Ks is something, but it's not massive.
Yep.
And I don't mean to be big dog or anything like that, but it's achievable, I guess, is what I'm saying. Approachable. But when you couple that with sleep deprivation, and then I finish and I don't have the opportunity to rest. It just adds this whole other. Your mind starts going. You start to be cooked, and then you start to get irritable, and it's just this natural thing, right? But I want to come back because you weren't in love with taking the first night as an idea prior to it, and fate, the trail gods.
I think I said I didn't want to go to Tassie to. I wanted to go to Tassie to
see the views.
Not to see a 12-metre beam of a head torch. As well as incredible as the Petzl beam is. I wanted to see some of the stuff. It turned out to be the best thing in the world.
Yeah, and I think you had some amazing, both kind of scary and fun experiences during that night. Like, talk us through. Actually, I'm going to say what I heard of your first encounter was some random lights in the middle of fucking. I don't know what state forest it was, but no car should be up there at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning.
I wouldn't have thought
on
so.
A Monday night. And so, take us through. You're doing your thing. You've got your head torch on. You've left us. You're up on your way, and you see these car lights. Like, what happens there?
Yeah, I think correct. It's not that I didn't want to run at night. I love running at night. I think my reservations came from the fact that I was pretty crook. I had the flu, and it was a decent one. I had sort of temperatures and shakes and aches and whatnot, and I wasn't feeling great. And then on the back of, again, you're coming into even more lack of sleep, and so you're additionally tired. And then, 8 hours before, you think to yourself, oh, okay, I could be running, at 8 o'clock tonight, or I could be running at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning, coming into sunrise and then having the day and, seeing the next bit of the section. And then, as luck would have it, you get the night shift. And that, I think, required a fair. Well, we talked about this, and you saw it. It required a fair bit of. I had to spend a bit of time getting my head in the right place to be able to go out and have a crack at that at night with the right, head on. I think one of my biggest takeaways from this trip was I've done a lot of running, a lot of long stuff. It's always just been for me. It's never been. It's never been for something else completely, and it's never been as part of a team. And so those two elements were absolutely massive. And so for me, it was time to go to work, and it was my job to get through the night and to get that 50 done as effectively and as possible, so that we can set up for the next day and we can keep on track. But yeah, I'd headed out, got the head right, and sort of kicked through sort of 6 or 7 Ks of farm road, windy sort of farm roads. And it was a pretty remote section where we were up there coming into the Midlands. So it's not really well populated. There's nothing out there. There's no phone reception.
There's no one.
There's nothing. Yeah, lots of pine logging forests, and I met Mitch and Steely and Cords at the bottom of this fire trail that we weren't sure was going to be accessible by car. It turns out that it was. Ours and someone else's, and they'd poked their head into the fire trail by about sort of 3 or 4 kilometres, and they said, like, we've never seen so much wildlife in one spot in our lives. And I'd said the same thing running down the road, right? I'm like, it's just, I described it. I was talking on the phone to Beck for quite a while, just yakking away while I was sort of kicking through towards this first checkpoint. And I described it as just being like staring at hundreds of red dots. And that's what they looked at. The head torch just lit up hundreds of red dots on either side of the trail, high, low, ground level, head height, everywhere. And these things would move and sort of,
those little wallabies, they're not. What are they?
They're the dumbest thing on the planet, is what they are.
The dumb wallabies. Because they're smaller than the wallaby, right?
Yep.
I don't know what
patty.
I don't know.
Anyway,
we may have killed a few.
We killed hundreds
with the car.
of them. We killed hundreds of them with the car. Tassie Devils, we saw a lot of them, and they would chase the light. So they'd come they'd run at you from behind, and you could hear them sort of growling away. But you got quite used to that. But it was a massive...
Turns out it was Cords.
massive pine forest that we were cruising through. And I've made my way up and knew that the boys were going to be coming up behind me. And so they were going to jump over the top, keep going, and sort of head up to somewhere up around 20 or 22 Ks up the top of the hill. And I'd seen headlights coming up behind me, and I'm like, oh, it's the boys. And so I'm sort of dancing around and, having a laugh. And
doing the old two-step.
Yeah.
Dropping a two-step.
And the lights just stayed behind me for what became, probably an uncomfortable time frame. And then I sort of jumped off to the side of the road just in case it was them coming up alongside. And it wasn't. It was just a random ute. So it was like a tray-back, 2-door ute, old. I couldn't see the front of it because it was just spotlights, rack spotlights, and across the front. And it just sort of creeped past and it disappears. You see it from the back now. It's got a couple of barrels strapped on the back and an excavator bucket and whatnot, ratchet strapped down, and it just heads off up into the bush. And I'm like, oh, okay, someone in the pine forest.
But it's like 12:30, like it's late. I don't know what time it is.
It would have been probably 10, probably 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Yeah. So it's getting on. But that's to put it in perspective, this is about 16, 17 Ks. And from when I left our checkpoint or our start to there, I'd seen not another soul. No one on properties, no cars on roads, nothing. So it was the only set of headlights that I saw other than the guys. And so it disappeared, and then I kept climbing the hill, and I passed like a cutting off to the side, like just another fire trail that headed down the side, and I looked down, and about 200 or 300 metres down, there's this ute with its brake lights on just down the fire trail, and I thought, I didn't know what was up there. I couldn't see past my head torch beam, so it could have been a property or whatever, and so I kept going, and then the same set of headlights comes up behind me again. And it goes over the top of me slowly again and climbs a hill, same ute. And I'm like, oh, okay, he's maybe going somewhere else. And he drives up about 1 kilometre and then turns around and faces back down the road at me. And at this point, I'm thinking, hang about, might not be ideal. Slowly comes back down towards the road, and as it sort of gets to, all I can see is light, and I'm trying to see, who's driving or whatnot. Yeah, it's multiple pencils. No, I could have done with some candy at that point. And then he came slowly towards me, and then I jumped, stepped off to the side of the road a little bit, and then he sped up and took off straight over the top of me, sort of down the hill. And I'm like, what's going on with this dude? And then he turned around, and I saw him turn around, sort of back down the bottom of the hill. And at this point, I'm like, okay, I think I just need to talk to this person and find out what's going on, because I'm not playing these games anymore. But I'd picked up a rock at this point, because I'm thinking,
you don't know.
I've got nothing else. Not running with poles or anything. I've got
you're not running through Launceston with lights. Like, it's in the middle of
No,
nowhere.
like,
You're
attack
like,
him with,
damn.
500 mils of Gatorade and a litre of water, a couple of watermelon mint gels.
Pickle juice.
Yeah.
The chocolate brownie clip bars.
Yeah, well, I could have got one of them out and dangled it, and he would have
He would have taken it off.
He would have taken
for
it off.
sure.
And then I stood in the middle of the road and sort of just gave him a wave, and he pulled over to the side. And it turns out, that he was just an old guy that wanted to have a yak about what I was doing out in the middle of the, Quamby Forest at that time of night. And I asked him the same thing, and he said he was out running his dog along the side of the road on a leash because it doesn't like running in town. The nearest town that I could think of was like a long way away.
And especially in Tassie terms, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right. But he said to me, I was just a bit worried. You look like you've got all the gear and you'll be right to look after yourself because people go missing up here in these parts. And I was just like, oh, yeah, righto. I found it quite off-putting.
What is it, Wolf Creek?
Yeah. Well, when we were talking to Mark, and he said, oh, all good serial killer movies start in a pine forest, and I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. But he is the only person that I saw in a vehicle, other than our guys, for the entire 50 Ks that night. And we went through lots of towns, lots of rural areas, did not see another soul.
And the point of that is, what people don't know about the Tassie Trail is it's typically a mountain bike and horse trail. And so most people that do it camp. So they go during the day and then camp. So it's very rare to see people doing the Tassie Trail at a night time situation, which
we had a lot of... That's right.
Nappers found out with that angry farmer.
Well, he said the same. There's the guy in the car said the same thing. The dudes at the pub said the same thing. Yeah. And Napper's the farmer that he bumped into, everybody said, well, why are you doing it at night? Yeah. And so it's quite uncommon that people would be running those sections, particularly the bits that go through private property and sort of the more remote areas at night time.
Yeah, and for people that don't know, the property is like the Great North Walk in the fact that it goes on state land and then private land. It does cut in and out.
Yeah.
G&W, you don't need permission, but Tassie Trail, you need a membership that you sign up to. And so, in fact, we got the key up here that I need to return.
Yeah.
Will not be returning.
Yeah.
But the key will unlock certain fences and gates and whatever to let you through. So if you get approached by people on private land, you need to produce this thing. Otherwise, you can be fined and whatever. There's drama because there's trespassing, technically. And so, that whole thing... Like even Nappers and his story of like in the middle of the night, this guy bailing him up and saying that they'd been tracking him for 10K from the neighbour earlier, and him going, mate, I'd be the shittest burglar ever.
The head torch and a fluoro vest.
That's right. That's right. But I guess what I'm saying is it's not normal.
No.
Like people don't normally do it that way. And so that was a learn for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know how many people have done this, what we did, like a version of what we did going the whole way through. But it was certainly, there was points where it was like, yeah, maybe this isn't normal.
Yeah.
And you telling us that story when we got to the car, we're like, damn, man, like, what could that be? And even when you come into that checkpoint, just before you got there, and I'm talking, so at that point it was probably 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well, that was when I finished, 3:30, yeah.
Just before you got there, two dudes in a flatbed Land Cruiser come past us. And because we're on the side of the road, and like they drove past and then reversed up to check us out. I said, oh, g'day boys, how you going? There's two dudes in there with these big ass beards and like just, they look like full moonshiners, like 100% moonshiners. And they're like, you right? I said, yeah, no, we're good. We're just waiting for a mate who's running. And they're like,
right.
You could just see them go, huh? And like, I'm feeling a bit awkward at this stage, but I've got a beard. So I was like, hey, boys, good beard. I like those beards. And I said, what are you guys doing? You coming home from work or what are you doing? Going to work? And they're like, no. I said, oh, well, have a good night then. Like, I don't know what the fuck they're doing at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, and I'm like I said, this isn't a major city. This is like in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it was interesting to me how quickly it transitioned from being sort of populated and semi-built up to really remote.
Yeah.
Like as in real, like, and remote to the point where it was like no phone reception, no signs of like, you could run. You could run for 6.5 hours through the middle of the night and not see another
Single person,
yeah. And
which is kind of cool. Like, it's kind of cool.
it's really cool.
But it is, yeah.
But that doesn't sound like that's out of the ordinary when you think about how big Australia is. But Tassie's only 480 k's from the top to the bottom, and so to find areas of such vast, I suppose.
Isolation.
Yeah, isolation in a relatively small distance, like 50 k's. And I'm just talking about my 50. That first 50k example. That's a tenth.
Yeah.
And that tenth, you can travel a tenth of a state that size and not see one other person or two or three other people.
Well, and you've just touched on something I want to go to, because you had a hell of a night. You had fucking Weirdo Joe in the Rodeo Ute.
Yeah.
And then prior to you coming up to us at about 38k, if I'm not mistaken, you've run through a certain town, and we call it what it is, through Bracknell, and you've seen a light on.
In the pub, as luck would have it, and you're right. It was cold. It was. I think it was 1:30 in the morning, and
the boys are throwing back in the pub,
and I saw one light, like a dim light, and I thought, no, how? And I thought it was just gonna be a tease. I thought there's no way, they'll be in there.
It's a mirage.
Yeah, it was a mirage. They'll be in there cleaning or whatever, or. But I thought I'll go and have a bit of a look. There was a couple of cars out the front, and I walked in, and there was 4 blokes in there. There was the publican, and then 3 in the bar. And I just admired the Bogue sign on the hanging off the front of the old building. And then, just poked my head around the window and knocked on the door, and I think it probably scared them as much as the bloke up in the pine forest scared me. And I asked them if I could come in for a tick. They were all pretty well trolleyed by this point. I don't think they were concerned, but they were quite amazed at what I looked like with my running gear on.
Oh, because you got the vest and
gloves, beanie, pack, head torch, running gear in the middle of the night. They never would have seen that before. And it's 1:30 a.m. now on a Tuesday morning. And I told them the story about what we were doing, and the fact that we were running from the top to the bottom, to raise money for the Leukemia Foundation, and tag teaming it with the mates. And I'd got the night shift, and they clearly had the night shift as well. We're having a good laugh while they were crushing their Bundy Red tins. And I said, look, I just want to take one off the tap, so I can send a photo to the boys. Can you pour me a Bogues draft? And so I paid for my schooner of draft, and I think it was because it was dark inside, but the publican went to pour the schooner. And just started running the tap and completely missed the glass. It's running straight into the drain, and I just and I just reached across and just pushed the schooner underneath. Went, all right, okay, yeah. And we kept having a chat. And then I had a couple of sips of my schooner, and sort of I said, I don't know if I'll finish this one. And I think the words were to the effect of, like, fuck, you won't finish it. You're not leaving until that schooner's gone. And so they started singing the song, and I wouldn't say that I drained it, but I stayed there for another couple of minutes and finished a schooner with them. But I've come back to this, like, it was great. He wouldn't let me take photos. Because it was outside of the or might have been outside of the licensing hours.
Supposedly,
potentially.
Yeah.
I think it was 1:30 in the morning, but I'm not sure. It could have been 8 o'clock at night for all I know.
I saw daylight.
I snipped a little photo of myself just for the boys, and rapidly sent it out because I was quite proud to be able to pull one off the tap while I was in the middle of 50 k's in the Tasmanian wilderness.
That's hero juice.
There were some bragging rights attached.
I had gone to sleep at that point, and I was meant to get.
I think everyone had, so I'm not even sorry. I'm not even sorry.
I was meant to get up and help around some point in this night, but for some reason you guys didn't come back or whatever. And so I wake up, it's like 2:30 or whatever, and I'm like, I overslept, like, where are the boys, what's going on, like, and I look at my phone and I just see this picture of you with the beer.
And this boy went, like, they're fine, and I went back to sleep.
And I'm literally just like, wait, what time? Like,
what's happened?
You know when you wake up and you're disoriented, I'm like, what time is, like, when's this from? And I could not believe that that's where you were, given that last time I saw you told me the story of the serial killer hunting you down. I was like, oh.
Clearly, and he's like, he's fine. He does not need crewing assistance. If he can, that's it. He's right. But I talked about that pub a lot, not just because it was a great experience being able to...
Great story.
I've talked about that night. It was one of the most enjoyable runs of my life. I just, once I switched my head into gear, I just had... I actually wish it took longer, because it was, the whole thing was enjoyable. It was just unreal being out. You could turn off your head torch and run under the moonlight. It was that bright. You're running, like I said, with the exception of one person and a couple of people in the pub, didn't see another soul. It was wonderful. I had an absolute ball. But what happened in that pub after I'd told the guys that story and had a beer, was we talked about the generosity that we saw from the top of Tassie to the bottom, people that got around it, and we obviously had incredible support from our networks back at home and everywhere else. But it was the people that you'd meet, like the first night when we get to a caravan park. We didn't have a site book because we had to change spots, and the stickers on the cars and everything. And they said, how many of you? And there's 7 of us. That thing only sleeps 6, but there's 7 of us. What are you doing? And we tell them the story, and the first bloke says, you're not paying for the campsite. I had blood cancer.
The thing was that Cords goes, I've got it sorted. Can you come in and pay? I'm like, yeah, all right, come in. And they're like, and we're doing the transaction. And the chick goes, what are you guys doing? And the bloke's there as well. He's sort of standing off the side. It's like a family little business thing. And I said, we're doing the top of Tassie, Leukemia Foundation, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no charge.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? He's like, no charge. He goes, I'm 5 years out. Good on you, boys. He'd been in remission and now he's cancer-free.
Yep.
And then that happened. Then at the pub...
Yeah, these dudes are pulling out $20 notes out of their wallet to give me cash,
which he paid for the schooner for you,
to give me cash donations. I said, I just do this at every pub, and then I take this and I go to the next pub. But the fact that I know it's incredible when you get a big cash donation, and people that have put in and given us thousands of dollars to support. The work that the Leukemia Foundation does, and it's mind-blowing. But for me personally, it's so powerful when someone gives you $20.
Oh, yeah, dude.
And these dudes pulling $20 cash. The dude that the following morning when we're waiting for nappers and we'd gone and ordered a bit of brekkie to Arthur's Lake, and he pulled out $100. Went, hang on, walked behind, opened the drawer, came back with $100 cash.
But that in and of itself. So like Arthur's Lake. There's fucking nothing there.
Nah.
There's nothing there. It's this little convenience store thing that has a chip fryer and a cook plate, serves petrol for the area, right? Like, there's nothing there. And so we pull up at like 7:45, and they turn up, and they're like looking at us like, who the fuck are these guys? And we sort of go, look, we're stinging. Like, we barely slept, honestly. Like, Nappers had done his thing. We saw him at a checkpoint not too far before that. We said, look, we'll see you up at Arthur's Lake. And we took off up there. But we'd only slept for like an hour.
Yeah, max.
Like, maybe.
Yeah.
We get up to and we're hungry, right? So we go to these guys, look, I think Cords went in. Do you reckon we could get a couple of bacon egg rolls? He goes, just wait. He was pretty abrupt, right? Then Cords went, okay, like whatever. Anyway, we wait and then we go in and we start talking to them. And like, 3 bacon egg rolls, whatever. And Tassie's so good, man. Like, even the bacon egg roll there was so good. And it's not because we were hungry. It was good. Like, it's really good. Anyway, what are you guys doing?
50 Ks through the night definitely increased the flavour
Well,
profile
that might have
of
helped
that bacon egg
slightly,
roll for me, but it was exceptional.
Yeah. But then he goes, well, what are you guys doing? What are you even doing here? And we tell him the story. And he's like, mate, I'm 1 year out of my thing.
Yeah.
Like, I had cancer. Here's $100. And it's like, and it comes to what you just said. These aren't wealthy people.
No.
These aren't people that have like oozing cash, man. Like, this is a small little business. I saw one dude come in for a $3 coffee
Yeah.
while we waited there for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a busy spot. And so the generosity of people from Tassie was so special in the fact that, like, they're like, hang on, what the fuck's going on here? And then they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it was crazy for me, even though all the stuff we've done for blood cancer and being around it, like, it was so prevalent, man.
Yeah.
Like, everyone had been touched by it somehow.
I
Like,
had the same thing. Me, Cords, and
Steely.
Steely. No, it was Nappers, I think. Oh, anyway, me, Cords, and someone. I forget. No, it was Jesse. Me,
Yeah,
Cords, and Jesse.
that's right,
We
it
go
was
through this
Jesse
town at some point. I don't remember when it was. Same thing. It's the place is 6:15. It's closing at 6:30, and I get in there and can we get some burgers? You better hurry. We're closing the kitchen soon. And like, okay. And then like we talk. She goes out and the guy comes in. Oh, what's the go here? Oh yeah. She just said her name's Carol, mate.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, okay. All good.
well, she wasn't wearing a name tag. You know, like,
Long story short, we wait for the burgers. We start telling them what it is. Like, 15 minutes later, we're outside eating the burgers. He comes out. Hey, mate, here's some sandwiches for the guy who's out there currently. We just emptied the Bain Marie. You need drinks. You need.
Yeah, that's awesome.
My niece has got like blood cancer. And, like, I was shocked at that point.
Yeah.
Given everything that had happened, pretty much, I felt like anyone we spoke to in the service industry.
Yeah.
Was
was
connected
affected.
to cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And wasn't it true that it was at that particular spot where after some abruptness and some real sort of, real proper abruptness.
It was like, get the fuck out of here. That's what that was
to
like.
start with. Yeah, that's what they copped to start. That then it switched around and they couldn't do enough for you. But while they were doing that, some locals came in and smelt the burgers cooking and walked over and Carol, if that's what her name was.
Carol, yeah.
Carol's leaned over to the others and gave them the same serve that they got and leaned over and said, "We're fucking closed." Anyway, did you want barbecue sauce on your burgers and your chips?
And would you like an extra chips and some potato jams and some scallop?
Yeah.
All right. But it was people like to help, right?
Yeah.
Is what I learned, right?
Yeah.
People and it's like, and we do the same thing. If people come up and we're doing some stuff, you'd want to help. But it was really cool to experience that firsthand and then hear the story. Go, I wasn't there, but hear those stories. And, it just ever brings back that what we're doing in fundraising for blood cancer is so important, right?
Yeah.
It's actually meant to be the biggest killer from a cancer perspective in this country in the next few years. The biggest killer. And so I'm not surprised we bumped into people when you know that stuff, when you hear those stats. And so that was super cool. Like, you get reinvigorated. You've had no sleep. You've run 50K, whatever. And then you get that stuff. You're like, man, this is why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we finish Arthur's Lake. Nappers had a few injury concerns coming into this thing. And I can honestly say, and I said this from the start, once he's there, he is focused. He is laser beam, dude.
Yep.
And like, he might be hurting, but the guy knows how to suffer, right? And so he got that first, and that was a hard one too. He had the big ass climb.
Yep.
He had both the hard ones.
Yeah, he did. He jagged both of them. And so really pumped to see him knock off that first 50, 54 or whatever it was. And him be like, I feel good. I'm sore, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
And then Steele gets into his
Back
fifth
to
leg.
back.
Well, he didn't know that at that point. Actually,
No,
he did know at that point. Sorry, he did know.
Yeah, he found out he found out the night before.
So and I can even remember the film of when I started.
Yeah.
And it was like, the next person is Jesse. And you could see him look and be like...
The numbers,
And then every time that happened...
Which you probably need to, just very briefly... The reason why it was the maths were apparent was because we'd predetermined the second set of 5 legs.
It's a good point.
So because we hadn't really, we had the week before we came to Tassie, we locked in the second set of 5 for a couple of reasons. The first was because there was, between Jesse Nappers and Steely, they all needed the chance to be able to run 100 Ks for the first time.
Their cherry, yep.
And whether or not that was going to happen, we weren't really sure. But the 2 final legs were slightly shorter than 50 Ks. So
the kids' races.
So that went to you and I, which meant that we then predetermined the 5, 6, and 7. 6, 7, and 8.
Yep.
And what that meant was Steely ended up with leg 6. So if he, through the very, very, very strict and impartially controlled lottery system that you controlled,
hold on, it was beer caps.
It was beer caps,
and I put their initials on it. What's wrong with that?
But if Steely was to jag 5, it would mean that he would be doing 100 Ks.
But there's a reason why we did this. So we just talked about blood cancer. Blood cancer. I wanted to come back on something we talked about, because I would say you and I, we didn't butt heads, but we had there was friction in the planning that was. I wanted to make this thing hard, and I wanted it to replicate a version of what people would experience by getting blood cancer, right? And it's rightly so, had the friction on the other side, which was, we got to have people be safe, right? Right, which is a fairly noble cause. and so I enjoyed the friction because we got to a spot where people were going to get a real fucking challenge, and I'm not talking about a run.
No.
Right? And so why we did this is that blood cancer, you don't know when it's going to hit you. I could have it right now. That's the reality. And what we wanted to do with the first 5 legs is you don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to cop the overnight section, and I didn't really want that. But, that's what I got, so I'm dealing with it. The second half, we tried to replicate it in that you know what you're up for, but it's still a challenge.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and why that's the case is you get blood cancer, you try and deal with it, you get the understanding of how you need to cope with it, but there's still a fucking massive road ahead.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's what we tried to put ourselves in. And I think we got to a spot where, particularly for Steely, when he jagged the 5th leg and then the 6th leg, I was pumped for him for a reason that he got to experience 100 Ks in the Tassie wilderness, right? And I don't think he got that straight away. I think he was a bit like,
I think that's fair to say.
Fuck, right? Yeah. But then, the same way you switched into a different mode, and I saw that when you switched into a different mode, you were sick, you were, I'll say, concerned, and then it was like business, and it was like, we're going to go and do this. I saw that in Steely as well. It's like, okay, and his words were, there's never a better time ever to do 100K. Yeah. I've got all my mates around me. Yep. We're in Tassie. We're raising money for someone else, whatever.
Good. Yeah,
the weather was amazing the whole
incredible.
Week.
Yeah.
And so he sets out to do, and that article today called him heroic. I agree with him. Yeah. It was so good in the fact that he just went out and he leant into it, and you could tell at checkpoints, at the 50K checkpoint, he's like everyone else is signing off at that point, man. Everyone's like, catch you, I'm going to have a sleep.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm just starting again.
Yep.
And so I think for me, I really enjoyed watching Steely, even though we didn't got much sleep that night. But when he come into checkpoints and it's like, how you feeling? And he's like, you could tell it. All he wanted to say was, I'm hurting, I'm tired, I'm hungry. And he's like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm having a good, like, this is a cool experience.
Bro ran for like 2 hours with his head torch off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's out there just soul running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, it was exceptional. It was something else to be a part of. It really was.
Well, and so for people wouldn't know, but we're going into checkpoints, and we've never done the Tassie Trail before. We don't know, so we're trying to work out spots that we can see him along this trail, and we go, bro, we're going to see you now, but then we ain't going to see you for like 18k. So we're going to drive up the road, and it was fucking bliss for us because we'd be like, let's set an alarm because we'll try and sleep for like 2 hours. So we get in the car, put the seats back. Yeah, Cords is on the back seat. Dan and I are in the front, so we lay him back and we're sleeping. Well, we've set our alarms too late. And Steely's come up with the...
Yeah.
And he's knocking on the window. And for about 3 minutes, he's got video of filming us trying to wake us up, and we're just zonked. We're gone.
Yeah.
He's like, are these boys going to wake up? Cool. Like, and we were done. Anyway, he did that twice.
Yep.
But
the other 2 times he didn't film it.
yeah, that's right. That's right. But to see him, and this is why I love these adventure things. Like races are great, but what I love about these adventures is you get to see him along the way. So he's running down this, like cool as spot. You've got friggin' rolling hills on each side, and he's got this dirt road, and we cruising past him, right? We've got the drone up, I think there's some great images of that. But he's just plugging along with, I'm going to say 7k to go, something like that.
Yeah.
And the boys are into him, like, yeah, let's go, like, or whatever. And it's not, no one cares what time he finishes. We're just stoked that he's like about to achieve something he's never achieved before.
Yeah.
Like, this is the first time. And, like, that energy is infectious.
Yeah. And it really was something else. And having, it was just so fitting that Steely had those 2 middle legs smack bang in the middle. And that did so many things. It was a massive personal achievement. It was a phenomenal achievement for the team to see a bloke do 100Ks, 250s back to back, smack bang in the middle of the week. And he got to run the leg that tipped us into the second half of the week. And the downhill, we're halfway through. Now we're more, and now we've got 4 legs to go. And what
it did also is that it set everyone else up for their second leg to not be able to
whinge or sulk at all. Yeah.
Complain at all.
Yeah.
It's like, man, Steely just did that back to back. Like, what have I got to complain about?
Yeah.
But it's but plenty of people do. I really want to point this out. A lot of people go and run 100 kilometres.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no one does it the way he did it. Where there's all this, I don't know when I'm running.
That's right.
I'm awake. Then, like, should I be sleeping now? Like, no one's done it like him. And he said to me later, like, maybe I need to go and do a proper one. And I'm like, dude, you've just done the hardest one you could possibly do.
And
do you know what I mean? Like,
we've talked about this a fair bit on reflection because you mentioned it. And in planning these things, those friction elements, that robust conversations, come as a result of trying to figure out, okay, this has got to be hard. How do you make it harder than it ordinarily is if everything's planned? But how do you make it hard so that it's still achievable? Because it's got to be achievable.
Sure.
We can't go out there and make it so hard that we're going to get all this support and we're going to get 200 kilometres in and then go up. It was too hard. We couldn't do it. We've got to find the balance, and that explored a huge amount of different options and things that we might be able to do or consider or think about. What ended up happening as we worked through that, and we did work through it because there were things that we were going to do, and there were things that we thought about that we significantly shifted our position on. But what we ended up with was, you talked about it with Steely, we've all run 100K races before. You know what they are. You plan them. You have a lead up that, we all had training blocks, but you have a lead up.
You know where the aid station is?
You know where the aid station is, what it's going to have, whether the attendants are going to be awake, all of the things that you need to be able to. You can study the elevation profile. You could study the 480K elevation profile of Tasmania from top to bottom, but you're not going to be able to process that. So much of it fell down to, I don't know what leg I'm going to run. And that was even to the point where for each of our legs, particularly up front, we knew the second ones, but particularly the up front ones, you pull your name out at Bogues in the afternoon, and the first thing we're doing is we're on Strava looking at where the start point is, where we're going to jump in for...
No.
Where the end point is.
I cancelled my next pint that was coming.
Yeah, you did actually.
I was like, I think I'll have a schooner, thanks.
Let it be known that we managed to order it for
you. but you're right, yeah.
And what happened is that you saw Steely do the stuff that he did, everybody else do the things that they did while they were running. But this is where the not publicised elements of it came in. We tried to replicate what it's going to be like with the uncertainty of copping an illness where you don't know when it's going to happen and what I'm going to have to do to be able to deal with it. But the crew became the network of that person and the family, and they experienced what it's going to be like when someone close to them gets something that they don't anticipate.
For sure.
And then
everyone lent in.
And then they're like, we've got to be up all night tonight. And he's finding this really easy, or he's not finding it so easy. What do we got to do to get around him? And so you really did experience the uncertainty and the challenges and a whole bunch of other stuff from both perspectives throughout that whole week.
So Steely comes in and finishes, right? And there's so much rah-rah. And it should be, right? He's just achieved this awesome thing. And Nappers is standing right there, who's jagged the next leg.
Yep.
And he's standing there like...
20 hours
And like, don't get me wrong, he was pumped for Steely.
Yep.
But he's standing there like 20 hours later, he's got to run another 50.
Yep.
And he's sitting there like... You can see him in his eyes. He's just like... He had his mask up over his face because it was cold.
Yep.
And he's just like, I don't want to do this.
I'm not sure what was harder. Like... Steely's back-to-back or Nappa's
having 20 hours off,
having the two hardest legs, and then having to just, you know what you like. I mean, you guys did it. Like, you're hobbling around, and he in particular, because he's got dramas, like Glassfoot or whatever you call him. Like,
he'll love that.
I don't know.
No, I agree with you.
From a filmmaker's perspective, it was perfect. Yeah. Because we had the tension of the back-to-back. And then we had the tension of explore the question: what's harder, the back to back or the do it, have a short break, and then do it again? So it worked out perfect for me, but it was you could tell he was slogging it out, and it was a good thing his second one was during the day, and it seemed very beautiful, and that was getting him through.
I think he enjoyed that part, which was good.
It was a
because and he had a tough climb that day. Yeah. And he just nailed that. Like I was so proud of him. Yeah. During that week, because he really lifted. In my opinion, he just really dominated.
It was exceptional watching him.
Given he's never done that before, right?
Just watching him grind it out, he just absolutely ground both of those.
Oh, giggle pot, eh?
Oh, it was great.
He was funny, man. Yeah. Ultra running. And his humour equals some sort of like hot combo. Not that his wife thinks that, but he was killing us. Yeah. And so Nappers then finishes, and what we know, but what people won't know is that Jesse, who comes next, was petrified of doing the dark.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. He's had a major brain injury a few years ago, and this isn't altogether fair. It has sent him many years ago funny.
Yeah.
So he was a bit funny for a while while his brain was recovering.
Yeah. And
he would put Weet-Bix in the toaster and those sorts of things, right? Like, you know, and he was trying to get his brain back on track. And the story goes is that, well, not the story, the reality is that when he had that accident, about 3 months later, we were doing the 100K at the Alpine Challenge. I remember him coming out of hospital, which was a very serious situation. In all honesty, I thought my cousin was dead. Like, and I'm not being dramatic. The photos I got was like, I think there's a chance he's going to die.
Yep.
He comes out of that, which is remarkable, and then he calls me and he's like, mate, so we still good for the Alpine Challenge in like 10 weeks? And I was like, hey, listen, I like your energy, but we ain't doing that.
Yeah.
Like, and so there's a whole story here, which I'm sure Mitch will uncover, which is like him doing his 100, coming back to justify his 100, right, and get that done. But besides the fact, the cognitive thing of no sleep, already run 50K, then I've got to do it through the night on a track I don't know.
And he's never really run at night before.
He's never really run at night before. And there's some staff.
And it's the most remote of all the legs in terms
It was,
of
yeah, that's where we hit our only problems.
Well, right. And so as he entered that, like, I can only imagine his perspective. But then a guardian angel turned up.
Yeah. The Ali Brown.
Ali Brown. So,
well, but just to add context to that, there was some conversations with Jesse, I suppose, carefully preparing for the fact that what we had thought were going to be the points that we were going to be able to get access to Jesse. So this is coming up over the
White Timber Mountain.
Yeah, White Timber Mountain, which is fundamentally the western side of Mount Wellington. So it's huge.
You're coming out of New Norfolk.
Yep. Yeah, and climbing,
up over the ridgeline.
Up over the top. And we knew that there would be challenges in getting up there. There's a couple of, exceptional four-wheel drive tracks that go up through the top.
The Nissan Patrol took... No. Is Thrifty listening? The car rental company?
I don't think so.
That we took full advantage of in the Nissan Patrol.
Yeah, that's right. But we had to prepare for the fact that we might have needed to stretch out the checkpoints between where we were going to be able to see Jesse and we had planned on and where we were actually going to be able to get up there.
Yeah.
And so that in itself was a mental challenge. At one point, we were leaving. We left water at a couple of points when we found that the points that we were getting to were impassable, but we were a few kilometres along from where Jesse was, and we knew what type of a climb it was, so we were leaving, water stashed for him so that he could get access to it. But prior to that, when there was basically Cords had to come back to get you and I, and it was a 2 hour each way sort of journey.
Because I was following Jesse.
Yeah.
So I took the thing to go and have a sleep.
Yep.
But the impact of that, which we didn't know, was a big ass drive.
Massive. Yeah.
Like, because we thought we could go up and over the mountain. Turns out, no.
Yeah.
So Dan spent most of that night driving.
We drove for 8 hours that night, overnight.
Yeah.
And this was, this was at a point where, and it wasn't a big deal, but what we were seeing was every time, so Steely finished, he was done.
Yeah.
Then we get into Napper's finishes his second leg. He's done. And we're watching the elation and the jubilation of being finished and getting those massive achievements while we're then rolling on to continue to crew, like driving through the night for 8 or 9 hours. It was you and I and Cords. You and I still had to run another leg. And so every time we finished crewing someone and watched them, we're done, we're thinking, okay, I still haven't slept. We're still another 6 hours or 8 hours through Jesse's next leg before you're up for another one, and then rolling through the day with some more travel, and then it's the last one. That night was the longest night that we'd had because we thought we were going to be replicating Steely's leg. Yep, we'll checkpoint Jesse, send him on his way, 10Ks down the road, we'll be set up, catching a bit of sleep, getting ready for the day ahead. It was nothing like that at all, and it was probably the one time where logistically we ran into some real significant challenges, but thankfully Ali was in town, and in that 2 hour window or 3.5 hour sort of return trip or thereabouts.
Hold on a minute, I want to press pause on this. Ali Brown is a mate of ours that lives on the Central Coast. Great fella. Napper's introduced us to him. and he's horned up. He wants to know everything about it and has been incredibly generous in donating to what we did. He was messaging us and whatever. Well, back at the campsite, I'm trying to call him. I'm trying to FaceTime
we said,
him.
let's give him a buzz.
Let's go. No good. I'm like, shit. I'm like, let's go. I'll try him again. You try and FaceTime. And I'm like, well, he must be out of reception or something. Well, old mate flies to Tassie, gets in a rental car and drives up to White Timber Mountain to meet, or right near White Timber Mountain to see the end of Nappa's 50 with a cold Guinness.
And
14
and
cheeseburgers,
right,
quarter
and
pounders,
enough McDonald's to feed most of Tasmania.
Yep.
Just out of the blue, no one knew. He just turns up, right, which was wild. But to your point, when you had
pause on that. So we've just had the story. Nappers has called us, mate. This farmer just almost shot me on his land. Where's the checkpoint? We come soon. Yeah, we're coming up soon. And so we go to meet him at the gate, and we're sitting there. And then all of a sudden this car starts driving towards us. And we're like, oh, maybe this is
Hang
one
about.
of the people. Time to, so we grabbed the key and essentially just...
please don't shoot us.
And then I kind of walked to the car and I'm like, mate, this guy's pretty smiley. Like, what's going on? And then I'm like, no, who's this bloke? No, it's Ali. And then, it was just a crazy moment how we figured out that he was there. I think he had called Nappers to figure out exactly where he was going to be. But none of us knew. It was crazy.
And I love him for that because what he didn't know was that he was going to be very crucial in crewing Jesse for the first bit because you had to drive an hour 40 to come and get me, hour 40 or plus back. So we actually needed him to crew for Jesse for his first checkpoint. And we're saying to Jesse, there's a massive chance that you're going to be 30K without a checkpoint.
Yep.
Or not, because Ali just turns up out of the random, right? So it actually worked out perfectly, and we didn't plan any of it.
Yep.
We tried to come good up the track, and seriously, we're going up these 4-wheel drive tracks, and it's like actually we can't go any further. We're going to really damage the car, right? And so
really damage the car. So prior, we won't talk about that.
Yeah. Actual damage.
Actual damage. Anyway, Dan's Austin Powers on the side of the off the side is a massive drop off, and he's Austin powering the car, this big Nissan Patrol to come round to take off to go back round the mountain where we've just come because we can't access Jesse, right? So we're all in the car, and the unsung hero of this whole trip is Cordell.
Correct.
The guy, we haven't talked about him yet, but I've known Cord since I was about 9 years old, or 10 years old, something like that, right? The guy loves a sleep, can sleep. In fact,
can sleep
it
anywhere.
might be his favourite thing. I've seen him sleep on a bus with his head against the window while it's bouncing like this. The guy can sleep. I reckon he had 4 hours sleep the whole week.
Yep.
Maybe 5 if I'm generous.
Yep.
And that night, he was, amongst others, was a superstar.
Yep.
We don't drink Red Bull. Our crew, we don't drink.
We don't.
And I remember waking up from a nap as we're driving back to the other side, and I wake up and you boys are on the Red Bull. I was like, damn, man, it's that type of... And I get
we
it.
actually had to stop and get out of the car. We were like, we're cooked here.
Yeah.
We were properly cooked because it was unplanned, and it was probably the most significant unplanned hurdle that popped up in the week. And it was, when you compounding fatigue and like you said, Cords had only had 4 or 5 hours of sleep for the entire week. That stuff builds up, and then you've got people that have run 2 legs, about to run other legs. It's starting to the load, the cumulative load really hits and builds up, and it was when that unplanned stuff comes in, that's what I mentioned before. It's where you start to test the mettle of where it's at. All the other, it's like we're not out there. We're not out there, having sing-alongs to country tunes at that point in time. Talking about how much fun we're having. That's the point where everything was stripped away, and it's like, okay, what do you made?
I got some videos of you and I at certain points, like talk us through, and like it's like
tough
death march.
Yeah,
like I
think you actually filmed when Cords and I got out of the car coming back, and you were out running. We'd brought Jesse back down, and so we'd come all the way back around, and we actually only just got to Jesse. Like that loop around the mountain,
we would have been there for 20 minutes, I reckon.
And the drive up on the other side was just as challenging as the other side. It wasn't like it was easy the other way. It was just passable. That was the only difference. It was like the challenge was just as hard.
Still big rocks and shit everywhere. Like,
and we only just got there, basically got there and set up and thought, okay, we got a while here, but we didn't. Before we knew it, Jesse was on us, and then on the back of no sleep and a full night in the car and driving around the countryside, you were like up ready to go and run, for half a day. And then we're taking Jesse back down. And I think when we arrived, you guys had a reasonable night's sleep, bit of shut eye. We pulled up and jumped in the car. And I remember Mitch coming, "Hey guys, how'd it go?" We're just like,
fuck off.
I don't think we weren't intentionally. It wasn't an intentional rudeness, but I think our fatigue, our fatigue overtook our enthusiasm.
Verbal communication was shining.
I tell you what, when Jesse came into that checkpoint, he was flying.
Yes.
Like, as in his energy was high, man.
Yeah.
Like, and which was so cool. Like, he's just come in like fucking red hot, listening to like the presets or something. Like Cords had run up the trail about a K with the speaker and was just running him in. And Jesse come in with heat, man. Like he was flying in there. And I remember, like, and it's kind of what you touched on before. Like, I remember, like, because I interchanged and then I'm off next. And I didn't have his energy. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's come in with some energy and I'm like, I don't have that right now. Like, I'm not riding that wave, you know? Yeah. And I remember putting on the headphones and putting on that song that I'd been listening to for fucking 4 hours, I reckon, the whole time. If I put it on the whole time that I played it, I reckon I put it on for 4 hours, that one song. Yeah. And I just put that on repeat and I'd come good and then started to, do the thing. But it's funny when you see people, and it's kind of what you said before, like people are finished, but you're like, man, I still, and I think I had 42 to do.
Still got work to do.
And I still got some time out here, like, and so, but it was great. It was beautiful. It was clear. Went did that, whatever. Saw the boys at the checkpoint. You and Steely, and you guys bought me some noodles, which is amazing. And then sort of sent it, and I'm actually up one of the bigger climbs on my route. And I'm filming myself because Mitch is into us, going, "You got to film on the trail and for the movie and thing."
Which
so I'm filming.
I did not do.
So I'm filming, and behind me the boys come. So I'm like, "Hey, look at these peanuts," whatever. Anyway, they're hooting and hollering and having a good time. They shoot up further up the road, and we stop and they give us the last checkpoint, and it's like, okay, we're going to go and pick Dan up because you'd had 8 seconds of shut-eye. Go and pick you up to then meet us at the next checkpoint for me to hand over for the last leg. And I thought, guys, it's like 7K or something. Well, it wasn't. It was longer than that.
Yeah.
And so, but I got like this I had a beer at that last checkpoint and that like gave me a bit of energy. And it was so fun, man. Like you through these forests, big logging forests, and off one side is massive big drops of trees, and you're just in the sunshine. And I've got the music going. And I'm just having a great time, and just reflecting on all of the planning, all of the moments to get here, all the challenges that we've gone through the week. Suddenly, no sleep didn't matter.
No.
You're just like, let's send it. Like, let's just freaking get after it. And I remember coming down the last few kilometres, you guys weren't there yet. And Cords is like, where are you? And I'm like, I'm 2K out. And he's like, mate, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm coming type thing. Well, you guys were there. You made it, whatever.
Yeah.
And come in and I finish, and I felt elation. But the second I finished, I was like, he's still got to go. Right? And so, like...
What do I got to do for him?
Well, it comes back to this whole thing of like, now it was fun. Don't get me wrong. At that point, it's fun. We've knocked 90% of it off. For you, that's different because you still got your leg to do.
Yeah, I hate to tell you, Dan, but we waited for a checkpoint for a couple of hours for you, and it was a lot of fun.
I know. I saw the aftermath.
Yeah.
And that was, I did definitely. It was one of the things that in part, I'm like, I don't have to run just yet. But that's not like that just means downtime. That time just got taken up with more more crewing stuff.
Yeah.
But it definitely was an inevitable delay towards. Like every single time, it was like someone's chipping it off and they're done, and it's like you can't relax until it is that point. And I do remember coming up on a checkpoint that looked like a full-on Bushdorf rave with crushed cans sprayed around the state forest somewhere that must have been left by some other people before you guys, thinking, this isn't fair.
Steely and I had a running race.
Yeah. I saw videos.
Hey, listen, a win's a win.
Yeah, I saw videos of push-ups. I saw videos of a whole bunch of different stuff.
But it was, and again, I know you still had your leg to do, but at that point, we're like, we're coming home.
We're doing it. Yeah.
We're coming home.
Yeah.
Like the last leg, we're coming home.
Yeah.
And
we're pretty confident Dan won't fuck this up. It's like we're okay.
I think it was very fitting that you jagged number 10 to bring us home because it for a few things, you'd had a big week yourself, and I think to bring us home from the perspective of all the effort that you put in was a good thing. That your family was able to make it.
I got surprised by my mum and my sister, which was incredible.
Which was
just
special.
just before we kicked off for the last leg, which was cool.
And so to have them there, and I'll ask you, but just so I can share it with the people listening. Coming into Dover is a little fishing town. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. And so you come down the hill, you turn left, there's a kilometre, and then you turn left to come to the sign, which is probably 50 metres from the turn off. Talk to me about the feeling that when you turned from that base, when you hit Dover, because you can see the water. You're coming down, you can see the water, right? And you turn and you're like, we're done here. I've got less than a kilometre to pull this off.
Yep.
Well,
my first thoughts were... when I was aware of the drone over my head, did it video me throwing up into this apple farmer's paddock? Because I did send it down that last hill, which was that last section had about 9 Ks of downhill from the top where you guys had your party, one of. And I did, a bit like you, I was like, okay, we're done here, and we're going to sort of come home. But it was super hot. It was hot. And I got a bit crook coming down that hill, which I do. It's a standard thing for me, but it came on me pretty quick when I got down the bottom, and you come through some sort of, I think it's apples through there, farms on either side and whatnot. And I purged a fair bit of enduro onto the side of the apple farmer's
watermelon
paddock at some point in time. But after I did that, and you pull around that corner. It winds a little bit of path, sort of, down by the river, and then you kind of feel like it's going to keep going, but then it just pitches a tiny little bit of a hill, and just like that, around the corner, there's the sign, and it's like, that's it, it's done. And everyone was there. My mum and my sister were there, and it reminds me of any of those massive long runs that you do, be it individual or as a team. It all like it all comes down to the last 150, 200 metres. And no matter what has happened in that journey to that point, in any of my experiences, any of the long stuff, it all just disappears for that last 100 metres. And literally it's for 100 metres. And then the whole lot, none of it matters. When I say it doesn't matter,
we're done.
We're done. We've been
corner,
able to...
That corner,
Yep.
all us boys then walked it in to touch the sign.
Yeah.
Man, that was cool.
That 100 metres or 50 metres or whatever it was walking up there, a lot of people say there's a whole bunch of stuff you remember about these big types of events, but you always remember the finish and what it feels like, particularly the fact that all of us came back down 100 metres and walked up to touch that sign and finish it off. It was so special, incredibly special. It's a particular part of it that I'll never forget. I know bits and pieces of it will become hazy over time, but that was just something else. And I touched on it before, that you do that stuff for your personal, you go and do your big events and your runs and whatnot, as in we all do, but to be able to do it as a team and walk up to that sign knowing that we had run from the top to the bottom. 480 kilometres, any one of us probably could have done that distance by ourselves. Over time, it would have taken much longer and it would have been much harder, but that type of a distance, some people will look at and go, it's 480 Ks and there's 5 of you, what's the big deal? The big deal was the fact that you did it together as a team, and it was everything that we've talked about.
Yeah, with everything else. Yeah.
With the compounding, working as a team. It's not just people think that doing it as a team makes it easier. So much of doing it as a team actually makes things in some ways harder, more logistically challenging, more relationally challenging. And I think thinking about finishing it off together as a team was something that was just absolutely incredible. Really was.
And the funny thing is that we weren't done.
No, that's right. So, not at all.
We finished on the Thursday night, 86 hours it took us combined, which was really good. Like, as in the time that we expected to do it versus what we actually did. I think
it's unofficially the FKT for a team relay, the Tassie Trail on foot.
Must submit.
But
we finished on the Thursday night, and it'd be fair to say we celebrated that night. Not ridiculous amounts, but we went to that pub and tipped a few in, had some food, and your family was there, and we then went back to the camper and slept the night. Then the following day, we had all the partners flying in and all the family, which was so awesome. And then that night, we went to the wagon and had a family moment of like, we've had a big week, thanks for coming down, whatever. And that was really special. Like, that was really, running is so selfish. And so to have like everyone that was a part of it, whether they ran or they didn't, was super cool. Yeah. And so we had our own celebration, then a family celebration, right? But then we still had to do something the next day, right?
I did feel guilty, but also quietly stoked that I'd been surprised by my mum and my sister and Beck and the kids had arrived literally into Dover within an hour of us finishing.
They only just made it.
And it wasn't by design. They were coming down on Thursday, but just because of the timings and how we didn't realise if we were going to finish on Thursday
or
morning,
Friday or
night,
whatever.
Friday morning, Friday night, Saturday, depending on what sort of happened. But it was exceptional just to see, and it started from there. It started from the Thursday afternoon when family started rolling in. It continued all the way over through all the Friday, and then it was just a gradual increase of everyone arriving, and it was awesome.
Yeah, then we got Lawson Hull coming to do music at the event we're doing.
Tommy
to come down and MC.
Yeah,
and like it was really cool to have like a personal celebration for the lads, that that did it, a family celebration for the people that are connected to us and that helped support us to get there.
Yeah.
And then like a celebration with all the Hobart Run clubs,
Yeah.
with all the New Balance guys, at Wagon, with some of the local community to do a 6K run, and then come back and have an after party. That doesn't just happen either.
No.
So we've had a massive week, and I can honestly say the second that party finished, my body shut down.
Yeah.
My body was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And it's like you hear it all the time with people doing, bigger things. The second they know it's finished, the body just goes, oh, I'm done, right? And it was like not so much that I wasn't operable, but I didn't have any responsibilities then. So for the rest of the weekend, we went to bakeries, we went to pubs, we ate and we drank, and we celebrated a really good week.
Yeah.
And it'll be something I never forget because of a couple of things. One is camaraderie.
Yeah.
Two is nothing's worth doing without thinking of others. And I really feel like there were moments during that week where we had to think about why we were doing it.
Yep.
Right. The third thing is that nothing's worth doing without a community. And the fourth thing is that I learned was you can do a lot of cool shit when you got good people around you. And there's plenty more to come. I know, I've got a lot of ideas. I know others have other ideas too, but that will be forever special because of what it was, because of the experiences we had together. And no one will understand that in its entirety, but what we can do through Mitch. Yeah, and what's not lost on me is we've done this thing and it's done. The feeling that we had, or when you saw Nappers being done. Nappers being done, and he's like, Steely's done. Mitch is about to start his.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
And so Mitch is about to retell the story of what we did. Well, his ultra is just about to start. And so, everyone had something that took something that week. I mean, Mitch himself was up for crazy hours to build the content.
What was hard for me is that I had to, for every waking moment, be assessing who's talking, what's happening, should I be filming this? Oh crap, I missed that moment. Try and get you guys to talk about it again. Like that was the hard bit for me. It was mentally draining. Just always having a camera in my hand, just being like, what do I film? Because I knew this was such an epic thing. And you have to capture it because it's only all going to happen once. And luckily there was no major stuff ups, I don't think. But for me, doing the social media was really hard as well. I know, having to do that just when you kind of just mind effed from what I just said, and then also from helping other people out. You guys really good to me. I got on those last 2 nights I got some really good sleep, so that was good. But for me, it was at the pub on the night we finished. I was just I could just feel it all bubbling up, and I was like, I got to go outside. I got all emotional outside. I called tea, and then I still needed to do post the footage from you guys finishing, and so I went out to the car, got the camera, put it in the laptop, had to do a whole bunch of stuff with that. Normally it was just all on the phone, I'm watching the video back of my camera, and it's just the raw footage, and we've got that Beautiful Day song playing, right? And you guys are all just circled up around the sign. You get this big huddle, and I come over and I put the camera on top, and it sees your face looking up at the sign cowl, all emotional, and then it just perfectly happened to line up with the part of the song that says, thank you for joy, thank you for pain. And I'm just in the car, just having cried, just going, there's moments in filmmaking that are just so satisfying, and it was just perfect. It was this event has been joy and it has been pain, or it's been suffering. We don't want to ham it up too much, but there was hard things, but there's been so much joy, and just for all that to align in that moment. I'm not sure if anyone else picked it up, but that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. What a ride you're about to take. You know what I mean? You're about to go through all that footage and start the story again. In a lot of ways, we had the easy bit.
Yeah.
Like, there is so much to go through. And so, like, I guess coming back to what you said, everyone sacrificed in the week, and people will continue to sacrifice. And what I'm so glad that we have is people like yourself who can take stills, Mitch who can film to relive the story. And I hope that people, even listening now to the potty, will be interested to follow along. And I know, Mitch, that your social media shit was a pain in the ass, but I had people pinging me non-stop. When's the next update? Like people were going wild for it to find out what was going on, and that was cool. You know, like people were following along from their, one of the guys was like, I woke up at 2 a.m. and was like, what's going on? Where is it? You know, and that's cool, you know. But, you know, we take that experience and you will relive it, over the next however many months, and pull together something that will give what we've talked about a visual experience to people. So I can't wait. I really can't wait to watch the film. And I'm sure there's going to be some crass words, and I don't care, because at that point, that was what we felt and that was what we experienced. And we raised $41,000 for Leukemia Foundation, man.
And we're still going.
And we're still going. And at the end of the day, we do this stuff because other people can't, which is our whole thing. And we're sitting here on the other side talking about it, having a couple of beers, having a laugh and reminisce. How good.
It's unreal.
How good.
What a week.
What a week, man. What a week. It's in a lot of ways it's depressing it's over, but
it is.
I mean, I'm not like unhappy about the sleep I'm getting. If that's what you. But,
I agree.
Yeah, but anyway, we did have a few Guinness and Bogues at the wagon.
Yeah, there was a couple.
Yeah.
Not
unhappy about it.
No. I blame New Balance. It was exceptional.
They were pretty cool to. I think I told you the story. Like, he's like, oh yeah, we're done. It's like, no one's drinking that Bogues. Fucking mid-strength.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. And I went to Mitchie and said, hey, listen, you reckon we should put some money on the boat? Yes, yeah, put some money. And I told the boys, I said, hey, boys, so you know, draft's done, but we're going to put some money on. And he goes, no, you fucking won't.
No, you're not.
And went up and paid for the whole pub's food and beverage for the rest of the night. Like, talk about people that actually that's great, and really generous. But talk about people that actually understand why we're doing our stuff. They were generous with the gear. They were generous with them coming down. They're family men. They're flying down to come down to this thing. They don't have to do any of that. In fact, they don't do it.
No.
Mate, they were flying out at 6 a.m. the next day.
Yeah, I know.
They're there till whatever hours of the evening, maybe morning, sinking beers. And the other thing that we haven't said is that in the middle of the week, we got a nice little bump in donations.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. Yeah.
Which is...
That was actually on my run. That was on my leg.
Yeah.
Because I was running along and I thought, I'll just check. Yeah, because $100 here and thing, and you just check it. And suddenly it went from 31,000 to 36,000. I was like, is that a fucking glitch? And then Mitch from New Balance messaged me and it's like, hey, listen, the CEO of New Balance has just donated on behalf of New Balance for the cause. Just want to let you know. Man, you don't have to do that. They obviously help us fund the trip, right? But they don't have to donate to the thing that we're doing. And so that, Mitch, it's a good point, because that's the stuff that makes it real connection. It's not just hey, we're going to do this thing and it's rah and fun and catch you later. They actually understand why we're doing our stuff.
Yep.
And when I got that message, I cried, man, because that means something to me.
Yep.
And it means more than a pair of shoes or a jacket or whatever. All of that stuff, I can buy my own shit. That's the stuff that's real.
Yep.
And so I'm forever grateful to those guys for their support for it. And I don't know, it's just, like at the end of the day, it's just cool to work with cool people. Like,
Sure is.
Yeah, we have a beer with these guys, and they're just good lads, and like people that you actually want to hang out with.
Yeah.
And for them to come down, I really appreciate it. So yeah, it was cool. And then a couple of lamb and rosemary pies, Jackman and McCross.
Yep.
We got to try and get Jackman on the spot.
Hey, and get old mate to bring up rubies.
Yeah, I'll get
and lamb and rosemary.
All right, Nads. If you're listening, you're gonna have to take extra luggage every time we come to the main.
I'm not sorry.
Yeah.
Like, please help us.
Yeah.
I'm looking down the camera at you. Nads.
Yeah.
You.
Which one? This one.
Good stuff, boys. Good times. I'm looking forward to hearing the other boys share
so
their
am I.
part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so for
Yeah,
those
very
that
much.
are still with us an hour and 41 minutes in, this will be a 3-part series. Obviously, the boys, and then we'll have Nappers and Cords come and join us, and then we'll also have Steely and Jesse as our final instalment. So, thanks for checking in and being a part of the Tassie Trail, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Fuck.
What you gonna do?
What you gonna do?